Hello, welcome to the channel. I'm Amanda and today we are here with a video to talk about finding your own art style. I did a video in October 2017 about finding your art style, and even though I do agree with most of what I said in that video, I have grown a little bit since then, and let's be honest, the video was awful. So we are going to be talking about that in this video. I want to touch on the previous points of my last video because I eventually want to delete the old videos, I'm not sure, but I want to discuss if my thoughts have changed or not, and then we'll get into my new opinions on the subject. So, my first point was to find the medium that you love. I did mention that it's great to play about with other mediums, and I still stand by this. I feel like you should just try all the mediums first, find what you like and stick to it. But I do think that you are allowed to use as many mediums as you wish, and you don't have to stick to one thing. But if you're really adamant that you want a certain style, then it's easier to achieve a certain style with just one medium instead of trying everything else. Because in my experience I've found that my style changes with the medium. So it's good to stick to one or two. Maybe just one or two that's easy to transfer your style between. For instance, I like using watercolour and Procreate, like digital art, and I find that the styles are so different. It can look like someone else has drawn that thing compared to one of my other mediums, if that makes sense. The next one was paper, and I do agree to some extent, especially if you use watercolour. The texture of the paper can play a big part in what your style looks like, but don't think that it's that important. If you want to use different types of papers for different things, then that's fine. For instance, if you prefer watercolour paper for watercolour, gouache, coloured pencils, all that stuff, then stick to that obviously, but don't get too bogged down with it if you can't find the paper that you like to use. Usually sometimes they go out of stock or they discontinue the paper. It's not that big of a deal. You can always find the same textured paper in different brands. So if you like cold press watercolour paper or hot press watercolour paper, there's different options there and you don't have to worry about that too much. If you like to try different papers for different things, like you want more texture on one drawing and less texture on the other, then go ahead and do that. I really don't think that you should worry about things like that. But again, if you are adamant that you want to find your style, then I do suggest using the same paper throughout all of your illustrations so that the texture is the same and so that the colours are the same and just everything is coming across as a cohesive sort of thing, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I have no idea. Then after that, I advised to find a subject that you like to draw and draw that same subject more than anything else. And I don't just mean one type of bird, I mean like animals or like one person, like one character. I mean people in general, or food and so on. Again, I do agree with this still, but I think that it's more than okay to choose 2 or 3 different subjects, or as many as you enjoy or can handle. Try not to overwhelm yourself with this though, because there is only so much time in the day to practice art, and the more you draw things multiple times, the easier it is to learn to draw that thing in your style. It's also easy to punch your style into your art in other ways, like the way you outline or colour or draw certain things. So say you wanted to draw food one day and then the next day you wanted to draw a person, you could still make it look like your art just by outlining the drawing in the same way and using the same kind of colour palettes and things like that. Another thing that I want to tell you is to avoid using tools that you hate just because it's popular. Fine liners, for example, you can line your work with coloured pencil or ballpoint or watercolour, anything, or nothing if you want. But I'm really guilty of wanting to line my art with black fine liner because I see other artists use it and I love their work. but I hate the process, I hate the results. So I think it's much better to find a way that you like rather than stress yourself out with it. People will like your art better if you enjoy it as well. So like I said, if you think that everybody loves people using fine liners, I must use fine liners, don't. Just, obviously if you do like fine liners as well, then go ahead, but if you don't actually like using that art supply and you're just using it because everybody else is, then your art is going to really suffer. So just find a way that works for you. And then colour palettes was another thing that I talked about in my last video, and I said that using your own unique colour palettes will help. And yes, it does. Many artists I admire use a select few colours that they love, like Catnip and Ellis Woolley and Fran. They all use kind of pastel-y colours, and there's plenty other artists that I can't really think of right now off the top of my head that use certain colours to make their art stand out. There is an artist that I know that uses just muted colours or just autumnal colours or really cool colours or really warm colours. There's plenty of artists out there who just use one colour palette. I'm completely different though. I have tried using a few colours for multiple different artworks and I just don't like it. I like to use limited colours for standalone works, but I feel like I prefer them like that. I find it hard to use one colour palette for many different artworks, and I don't feel like my colour is the cohesive thing in my artwork. There are colours that I use more often than other colours and need to replace regularly because I use them way more than the others, but it's definitely because I paint a lot of food and most of it has yellows and deep reds and browns, so it's just because of what I paint, not because of the actual colour palette that I use. I really would love to find a unique colour palette, but I can't seem to make it work right now. And then the last thing that I said in my old video was research art styles. I've done this a lot over the last few years, but I feel like it's really not helped me. And the reason for that is because I think my mind is all over the place and I don't stick to practicing to draw for long enough. Then I forget what I like, basically start from square one again. Either I don't add the element enough times for it to stick, or I move on to something or someone else I like and forget about the previous one. There is a book that's called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon, which I haven't actually read yet, but I really want to. But basically I've heard a lot about it, and apparently it goes on to talk about how to find your creative jam and touches on the fact that nothing is original, so you have to embrace influences, which I love and wholeheartedly believe it to be true. So taking elements from several different artists you love and mashing them together to make your own style is completely fine. You shouldn't feel like you are stealing other people's work in a bad way if you're doing that. Like, maybe you prefer the way that this artist draws eyes, but you also prefer the way that this other artist draws bodies or feet or hair or colours or lines, you know, different elements. Take them all out, put them together, and eventually it will develop into something unique. So now we're on to my separate thoughts, finally, halfway through the video, or actually near the end. I have been seeing a lot of artists talking about this recently, and their answers are always the same. When people ask how do I find my own art style, artists tell others to stop worrying about it, it'll come in time, just keep drawing. But the thing is, even though I agree with this, I don't think it's helpful, but I also think that the artists who are asking these questions about how to find their art style don't actually mean that particular thing. They want to know how to draw. They want to know how to draw in the way that they want, or more to the real point, they don't know how to learn how to draw the way that they want, if that makes sense. There's plenty of tutorials out there on how to draw the human body or how to draw a face, but a lot of them are very generic and you kind of have to figure it out on your own. I feel like a lot of artists want their most favourite illustrators to make a step-by-step guide on how those illustrators draw, but the illustrators that draw the way that they do didn't have that when they were learning either. They had to figure it out as well. I'm pretty sure that those artists built their styles up over time by stealing like an artist, taking things from other artists they liked and adding it to their own work, and just generally practicing and drawing a lot. And unfortunately, I think that that is the answer. That's how you find your style. You need to take influences from other people, draw a lot, figure out what you like. If you don't like it, start something else. If you do like it, continue and keep adding different elements onto your drawings until you come up with something that you like. I am still not really happy with my style, and I think a lot of us are not really happy and will probably forever be developing and changing their style, and I think that's totally okay. There will be times where you love your style and times after that where you absolutely hate the way that you draw, and that's sort of like a growth thing, because your eyes are becoming more knowledgeable, your brain is more knowledgeable to how you would like to draw, and your hand skills have not caught up with your brain yet, and you just need to teach your hand how to draw like you want in your brain, if that makes sense. How many times did I say if that makes sense in this video? Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want a close-up of this art I made, it will be in the description below. And I also want to hear your thoughts on this subject. Do you think that there is such a thing as being able to find your style, or does it come naturally? Have you found your style yet? Just tell me all of the things that you think about this topic in the comments below. Check out these playlists, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!